Hammond, and I want to welcome you today to Half Hour With on The Performance. Very excited about this. I saw this movie. It is coming out in December, and then it'll be spreading around the country in January and on into 2025. There's a lot of beginning buzz about it, and it's a very important movie called The Performance. And it's actually based on a short story by the one and only Arthur Miller. And today we are so happy to have the film's co-writer and its director, Shira Piven. Welcome, Shira, to Half Hour With.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
And thank you for coming. Congratulations on the movie. Shira has made feature films before, like Fully Loaded, and Welcome to Me with Kristen Wiig, and on like that. This one has been a long time in coming. I believe this has been 10 years, a 10-year dream to bring it to the screen. So before I show them the trailer to give a taste of the film, tell me about how this came about and why you wanted to do this one.
This film started with my mother, strangely, and my brother plays the lead. I ended up co-adapting.
Jeremy Piven.
Jeremy Piven. Yes. And our mother, who's a theater person, actress and director, she is a lover of literature, and she has often adapted. I kind of grew up performing and directing adaptations of literature for the stage. And she keeps her mind active by reading to this day. So it was probably 15 years ago that she read this story in the New Yorker by Arthur Miller, and it's called The Performance. There's sort of a little niche world of people who love and know this story, but it's not a super famous story. And Arthur Miller is really a playwright who's known for his extraordinary plays. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright, Death of a Salesman, All My Sons, and on and on. But he writes these beautiful, dark little story sketches. And this story really stayed with me. And my mother found it, sent it to Jeremy, and she said, I think this might be a role for you, this role of Harold May. And they were both talking to me about it, and I read it, thought about it, and then a few years later, I was like, I need to go back to that story. So I reread it, and it just had that moment of click, that moment of this is a movie. And I couldn't get it out of my head. I asked Josh Salzberg, who I'd collaborated with in another role in Welcome to Me. He was the editor, and he's a writer, probably first writer, second editor. Anyway, he agreed, and we started adapting it probably, I don't know, 9 years ago. But Jeremy had been optioning it for, I think, 15 years from the Miller estate, from Rebecca Miller, who's also a director and Arthur Miller's daughter, and happens to be also married to Daniel Day-Lewis.
Right. I'm surprised Rebecca Miller didn't try to hang on to it, because it is a natural film, as we've seen what you've done with it. So let's take a look at the trailer right now for The Performance.
We're broke because I love to dance. Hermé, you are a true artist. How would you like to perform at the Kick Club? One performance. Who do you work for?
Harold doesn't even look Jewish.
We'll be in and out in 2 days.
People like you are trying to get out of there.
Wake up! I've never had a house. I've never had a family.
And you're gonna tell me I can't go for what I deserve!
So, let's go out there and give them a show.
Come on, let's go.
Yeah, we're just gonna waltz out of Berlin with our special little group.
Oh, man. It's like, first of all, what you saw in that trailer was some spectacular dancing and musical numbers and overhead shots, a la Busby Berkeley, a little bit there
Exactly.
too. The way you managed to shoot it as a director here. So, you know, tell us about the themes here. This is centered on Harold May, whose real name is Markovitz, but he's got Harold May, and he finds a get rich quick scheme in his mind. He can get some money here by taking his dance troupe to Berlin in 1936, I believe, was the year this is set. And of course, the rise of Nazism and everything going there. And they're going to perform for a special audience. And that's sort of all we know and all he knows until we find out who this audience is. So take it from there and talking about the themes here that are so kind of chilling. I have to say, this movie's really prevalent for right now, too. It's very pertinent.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, it's the world has really changed even since we started making the film, which is something I want to talk about, but I want to first answer your question. I'll talk a little bit about the themes. It starts in 1936 and in New York, and Harold takes his troupe to do kind of a Balkan circuit, which is, it's, he's not playing London and Paris. He basically is playing like Bucharest and Sofia and Budapest and he leaves New York with his troupe because it's the Depression. So it's not necessarily for him a get rich quick scheme. It's a man who is he's nearing the end of his career, and he desperately wants to have some recognition, some success, a little bit of, that ease that comes with um getting to a certain point in your career where you don't have to scrape and scramble for every gig, every dollar. So he thinks that tap is the new thing in Europe. Eastern Europe, he takes his troupe, they're struggling, dancing, and then they get recruited by this guy, this mysterious guy who happens to be German. And he says, come do one show, just one show. And what he offers them is, an exorbitant amount for that period of time. Harold is a Jewish man, and he has blonde hair. He's always passed. He's never had to really think about his Jewishness in a way. And he's the one who ends up convincing his troupe to go into Berlin. And everything really unfolds from there. But there are Faustian themes ultimately, that here's a Jew in Berlin who is hiding his identity. And how are there not then going to be these Faustian themes of, what is he going to compromise? How can he hold on to his integrity as a person? How can he hold on to his Jewish identity? How can he not get killed? In 1937 Berlin. It was at the Kristallnacht started in 1938. So that we are really on the full speed ahead road to all of the horrors that were to unfold in World War II and the Holocaust.
And you took the story, as you mentioned, and co-wrote the screenplay with Josh, who was your editor, and welcome to me. But you took some necessary liberties in bringing it to the screen too. What kind of changes? You had the basic bones of it from Arthur Miller, but did you feel the need to make it cinematic, to make it a feature film? You had to add more. And can you talk about that and the development of the screenplay?
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of the fun of it. I mean, because my background is mostly, I think of myself as a director first and a writer second, and I love working with source material because it just gives me inspiration. And I also like one of the things I discovered is that I really love to be true to the original source material. And it was great working with Josh Salzberg, who's a beautiful writer, and I love the way he thinks, and we collaborate really well, so it was really nice. I feel like we complement each other, that he's willing to sort of say, like, what's the craziest far off from the original thing we can do? And I'm And I'm also going back and going like, what's in there? What else can we bring out? And it's a good combo. And then ultimately we forget about all that and just try to create a beautiful story. Um, and this story has to punch you in the gut and be entertaining at the same time. So some of the things like the ending was completely how do they escape Berlin was had to be a completely original, almost like a third act that didn't exist in the story itself. The love story, um, the story of Paul, who is the youngest dancer in the troupe, who looks starry-eyed. He has a little stutter, and he looks up to Harold, and it turns out he's gay and has an affair with the Moroccan club owner, and there's some tragic things that happen through with the club owner that we see, which propels everything forward, um, and really reflects kind of the darkness of that time. And yeah, for me, what's happening right now in our world, it it's frightening, and I feel like we always go back to there's so many pieces written, so many movies, stories, plays written about this era of the Second World War because it was such a kind of a clear, there were so many clear moral choices. At least in hindsight, the moral choices are so clear. And I found my daughter asked me, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, she was probably 14 at the time, and she said, "Mom, could the Holocaust happen again?" And there was a time when would have answered, you know what, don't, that's not something you need to worry about. But something about these times um, reminded me that nothing is for sure.
No.
And there's so many things happening in our world right now that make this story painfully, painfully relevant. We wish it weren't relevant.
And the sense of denial, not just of Harold, to get through this, but the whole troop. Okay, we're going to do this, and we're Americans, and this isn't affecting us. And there's a big wave of isolationism at that time in America. As you say, it was in the Depression. And so you can be in denial, you know. Right now, there's America first, and, the feeling we need to be isolated from the rest of the world, ignoring things going on in Europe and all of that. So you're right. History repeats itself in different weird ways. And it's movies that have the power to point this out to us. That's the great thing, that you as a filmmaker, a power you have.
No, it is a gift to be able to to be able to make a movie, and especially in this time, in it's especially hard to get an independent movie made right now. It's always been tricky, but yeah, it's been quite a journey for us.
And
And
I should say, you are not only the sister of Jeremy Piven, who stars in this film, but your husband is Adam McKay, a very established filmmaker who himself has made great things that say things about the world, but also, goes through the same thing of trying to get these movies made that have meaning behind them as well, right? It runs in
yes,
the family. You want to say something.
yeah, yeah, I've always felt that way. I mean, in my theater days as well, it's like why there has to be a reason for a piece to be, and theater and film are part of the larger conversation that we're all having about what it is to be human and how to live in this crazy world right now. So of course, yeah, we want to say something. We want to encourage people to think and feel
Yeah.
and relate to our times as opposed to just tuning out and distracting. And yet, our film is really entertaining.
It's
And
very
there's,
entertaining. A cabaret's entertaining too.
yeah.
And you watch that and you see, the great new production on Broadway of Cabaret, which I saw, and I
Oh,
felt like,
really?
well,
I want to see it.
this has so much to say now. It's in a completely entertaining way, but people walk away thinking it. And I think people will, when this picture uh, opens and gets around and gets able to be seen, will have the same feeling. They'll be entertained. There's no question. And the cast is to die for, right down the line. And I want to show another clip which features Robert Carlyle, who I didn't recognize at all. I know who Robert Carlyle is.
Yeah.
I'm going, who is this actor playing this role of Damien Fugler, who is a very interesting three-dimensional character? Because yes, he's, you know, maybe a Nazi and things like that, but he's very shrewd. He's like the devil offering, you know, an opportunity here in his own way. And we're going to show a scene early on where he approaches Harold backstage and introduces himself with a bit of a proposition. So here's another scene from the performance.
Are you Hermé?
Yeah. Is there a problem?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I am Damien Vogler. Your performance was extraordinary.
Oh, thank you.
May I steal a small moment of your time?
Oh no, I'm gonna go catch up with my
I'll
troupe.
only be a moment.
But sure. Okay. Yeah. No, thank you. Am I in some sort of trouble?
But that will depend. Are you a communist?
No.
Spy?
Not that I know of.
Not that I know of. That's a good one, Hermé.
Thank you.
Tell you what.
Yeah.
Lend me a smoke, and I won't report you.
You got a deal.
I first saw you in Vienna. I've attended 3 of your performances, in fact. And I must say you are a true artist.
Thank you. That's a living.
Baking bread is a living. But I suppose even Johann Sebastian saw himself this way. Such is the curse of the great man.
Yeah.
I used to dabble as a performer myself, you know.
Really?
Stuttgart Opera.
It's fantastic. What were you, bass? Tenor?
Speercarrier. Now that was a living. But it was still the opera. Singers, dancers, mans of the stage. And Fräuleins love mans of the stage, no?
No. I mean, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. He's so good, and Jeremy is so good. I know Jeremy feels this is the role of his career to date, but anybody that's seen Entourage could also throw that in there too, because he's such a brilliant actor. But he really is also producing this and bringing it to life. So did he come to you? Did you go to him? How did this become this collaboration between brother and sister?
Oh, it's so fun. It's funny, like, because I've watched him. He's done, I think, 80 movies or some crazy number, and I've watched him in so many performances. And the getting to direct him was just it was just delightful. And actually, we came to him. I came to him and I was like, I know you've been optioning the rights to the performance. I love this story. And I had a suggestion of a writer, and they started to negotiate. And I was, there was some talk of me working with this writer, perhaps, and directing. And what ended up happening was that didn't work out. And Jeremy was super disappointed. So I said, look, that's when I went to Josh Salzberg. And then I said, look, Jeremy, we're gonna write you a draft. We're gonna write a first draft and see what he's like, whatever. Okay. He was sort of down on the whole idea at that point, because I think he was frustrated with the initial thing falling through. Anyway, we wrote a first draft and we presented it to him, and he fell in love with it. And we all got excited. And then the long road started of how do we make a period piece on an indie film budget? Because we knew that the likelihood of, getting a studio behind a movie is its own beast. So we started on that journey. But yeah, I think it was gratifying to me that our first draft kind of like grabbed him, and then we just started the collaborative process of trying to get a producer on board, and that's a long process too. Oh my God, Robert Carlyle that was also a long process of casting Fugler, and that scene was so extraordinary because, well, we had already begun filming. No, we'd begun pre-production. We were in Bratislava, Slovakia, which is where we shot at 99.9% of everything, including
Even the New York scenes and everything?
even the New York
You
scene.
doubled New York for Slovakia. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Is that because they have a huge tax credit and you can make it for a price?
Basically, yes. But they also, yes, and definitely, but they also have these very German style buildings that don't
Oh,
exist in Berlin anymore. So we got the best of, we really got, and they were buildings that maybe if you looked hard, you could find in New York City, um, or, somewhere else that would have been prohibitively expensive. So we got very fortunate to have these beautiful locations and get the tax credit and be able to shoot it. But yeah, Carlisle and Jeremy kind of like had this magical moment in that scene, and it was really, he had done one little short scene, but this was the first real juicy scene that they did together. And Josh and I were both at different monitors, and it's a little embarrassing, but we both got a little choked up watching the scene because it was like, because the chemistry was beautiful and palpable and the words were coming to life. And it was
yeah.
exciting.
It's amazing. I have to ask you though. So Jeremy Piven, in all the years of trying to get this movie on the screen, kept taking tap lessons, and getting really. This is all him. This is all him doing this tap dancing and this troupe here, and it's remarkable. I know he was a drummer growing up, so he felt he had a sense of rhythm. But did you have any idea he could pull this off the way he did in terms of the tap?
Um, I, you know, yes, and it was terrifying because I felt like we were doing something that it was a real, I think back to how I felt when we started in pre-production. It was like a leap of faith. It was like, are we going to be able to pull off this period? Are we going to be able to pull off Jeremy as not only a good tap dancer, but like the lead tap dancer?
One
And
that's going to captivate all these people to make these offers, that has to be believable.
no idea if we could do it, but we had this amazing, amazing choreographer, Jared Grimes, who's like a Tony nominated performer and a really, really gifted choreographer um, who also is a specialist in this period because it's a different style of tap than like 90s Savion Glover, or it's really a specific style of almost like a little bit of ballroom, very some upper body stuff as well as the super rhythmic stuff. And Jeremy did like I don't think he could have pulled it off if he didn't have that extensive background in not he has a really we both play music, and he plays drums specifically. I play other things, but he had this natural ability as a drummer that he brought to his tap, and we had, a little help here and there from our tap, our additional dancers, our tap doubles, but he did an extraordinary job. Jared Grimes is, the two of them collaborating was just incredible.
And the way you shot it is really, I mentioned it before. I mean, some of the overhead and all the ways of shooting, basically in a theater, on stage there, and made it come alive in such a vivid way.
I love that you said Busby Berkeley because that was,
Yeah.
I was like, we'll never be, again, indie budget. You can't do Busby Berkeley on indie. Like, if you don't know Busby Berkeley, it's like those big giant numbers where like he has like 100 women swimming in
Yeah.
beautiful outfits that create patterns and
It's all
shapes,
synchronized, and it's
synchronized. Yeah.
it's the overhead shots and the Warner
Yeah.
Brothers musicals like 42nd Street. It's amazing. But this movie really gets the feel of
A
that for
little bit of
that
it.
too. And also that this style of tap is what appealed to the Nazis. They liked the military kind of thing, which we realize watching the movie that that's part of the appeal to them of this performance, which is really scary. I
Yeah.
thought, when it's put in that context.
You feel almost like they're stealing a bit of your soul. Like they're stealing a bit of the art of tap dancing. And it's funny because we discovered that there was a love of jazz, but they wanted to sort of take the black elements out of jazz. Very, very despicable. And they couldn't do it. Like they thought they were like you can hear there's a guy called Charlie and his orchestra, and he plays this sort of supposedly whitewashed jazz, but he couldn't do it. You still feel that essence of that jazz soul.
And your cinematography is great too, because you are merging in some archival footage and you have to have the color palettes just right here. And I thought you had a terrific cinematographer, director of photography here to work with as well.
Lael Utnick is, yeah, we sort of took a leap of faith too with him. He fell in love with the script, and he was really willing to give me a lot of pre-production time to delve in. And there's always the pressure when you're doing a film to work with to work with like a star cinematographer that's very hard to get, and you have to chase them. And Lael had this deep experience as a cinematographer. Like I think he started when he was a teenager, but he hadn't done a million feature films. So we just worked and worked, and he which ultimately I give him all the credit for how the film looks. It really, he really has this amazing talent of being able to shoot guerrilla filmmaking style, which I wanted it to feel contemporary and real, and use handheld camera, just to get just more of a gritty feel, and to make you feel like you're in that period rather than like it's beautiful and pristine from a distance. But then he also got the beautiful wide shots and shot the dance scenes, some of them with 4 cameras. So he had both of those skills, which was really remarkable. And I always had wanted to use archival footage and shoot some of the film in a sort of a dreamlike 8mm. And he just picked up that ball and ran with it. So that was a really fun collaboration because he really got that. And we were able to do some camera tests on the quality of the moments of 8mm, and give that sort of authentic period feel.
Wow, it's amazing. Well, this movie is set to open theatrically, as I mentioned, in December. So many people haven't seen it yet, but to get them to see it, can you give us like one thing about the film that stands out for you that would make them want to check it out, other than what we've talked about? What is the key for you in trying to get people to come see your movie?
Oh, that's a hard question, but I think that the strange thing is it's different now than it would have been 2 years ago. I feel like the world has turned upside down in the past few years. And I think there's a relevance to this movie that it was already a movie that had a little bit of a timeless quality. But I feel like right now it's more relevant than ever. And combine that with a real joy from the tap numbers. It's sort of an unusual combination of, it makes you think and feel, and it also entertains you at the same time.
Does it all. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank our friends at GVN Releasing, and to you, Shira. Best of luck on this movie. Thanks for joining us to talk about the performance here at Half Hour With. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. You're so great. Thanks.